Hello there, this is Doc with Newbie Marketer lesson number 2. And today I want to just fall back and talk a little bit about 3 of the questions that have repeatedly come into me as I've begun to teach about internet marketing. And I want to make sure you understand that there are good answers to these and they sort of can guide your early days in internet marketing. Chief among those questions has been, can I start selling online for free? And my answer to that is no. That's because while there are some free options for some of the things I'm about to discuss, there are real drawbacks to each of those options. And the reason they don't work well is because they don't project a proper image for your online business that will attract people to do business with you. So let's talk about some of the things that will cost you money. You'll need a domain name. In my example, docthecoach.com is my primary domain name. That cost me about $10 a year to buy and to sustain. I have a hosting account with a company called HostGator, and HostGator allows me to put my websites up online, all the images, all the videos, all the content that I write. All of that is stored with HostGator and backed up by HostGator. And that costs me about $6 a month. You'll also need a program to create what's known as opt-in forms. And we'll discuss opt-in forms in much greater detail a little bit later. But what they are is places where people like yourself can put their email address and maybe even their name into form boxes, and those boxes can be, that information can be submitted so that you move on to my email list. And from there, I'm able to keep in touch with you. You'll want the same thing as you build your own mail list. It doesn't really matter what niche or what area you decide to move into online. All those customers are a valuable commodity, and you'll want to reach them down the road. So you'll need to put them on a mailing list, and these opt-in forms are a wonderful way to capture that information right there on your blog site. The other thing you'll need is an autoresponder account. It's sort of an add-on to creating opt-in forms. Once you have had somebody complete the information to join your mailing list, the information gets shot over to what's known as an autoresponder account, which is essentially an online service that keeps track of your mailing list for you. It does much more than that, and as I said earlier, in lesson 4 we'll discuss an autoresponder account in much greater detail so that you can understand why it has this cost and why it's so mandatory. But for right now, I can promise you that it's probably one of the best 1 or 2 expenses that you'll undertake early on in your online marketing career. So let's tally that up. You're going to have $10 up front to buy your domain name. You're going to pay $6 for your first month with hosting, about $30 to buy a plugin for WordPress so that you can capture people's names and email addresses, and then about $25 to store those email addresses and names in an autoresponder account. So about $71 to start. That may not sound like free, and it's not, but when you stop and think about what it takes to set up anything, whether it's an ice cream shop or a car dealership, you can tell that by comparison it's much less expensive. And then let's talk a little bit about your monthly expenses. Well, you're going to need that web hosting expense on a regular basis, so there's $6 a month that you'll have to spend. And an autoresponder is also a monthly expense, so you can look forward to spending that every month. So if you add the $6 plus the $25, you're looking at roughly $31 a month, bare bones minimum expense to continue doing internet marketing. I would say that's about as reasonable as it gets, and I can't think of too many less expensive ways for you to pursue it. Do you need to have a math background to measure how well I am doing? This is, or do I need to have a math background to measure how well I'm doing? I get this a lot, and there's just a very simple answer to that. No. Most of the data that help you understand what are important numbers in your internet marketing business are presented visually. You'll find, and we'll discuss this later on, there are free services online, usually through places like Google, that will track how many visitors come to your website. They'll track the number of, your autoresponder, for example, will track the number of people who sign up and join your mailing list. All of these things are done with simple numbers and or simple graphs and charts that enable you to make visual sense of how well your business is proceeding. And the third question that I want to deal with today is, what can I sell? I'll try to keep this short because we can talk about this in much more detail later on, but in essence, what has leveled the playing field and made online marketing so attractive is that the information I'm going to encourage you to prepare and share or prepare and sell was once hard to obtain. Somebody needed to go buy a book, or, which meant hopping in the vehicle and going to get it, or it meant that you had to go to the library to get even a free copy. One of the things you could be sure of is that until the internet came along, you couldn't sit in your house and very simply order up free information or even paid information and have it at your fingertips in no time at all. So what we do primarily in this business, and there's a software component that people design software and design plugins and things like that if they have a particular technical skill. But largely in my business, I create electronic reports, books, audios, and videos that people can download as soon as they pay for them. I'm trying to instruct them specifically in areas that are of interest to them. The way you do this is you find a unique area of knowledge in your own life. And I've put a couple of examples on here that may sound sort of off the wall, but if you stop and think about it, we all have certain areas and certain hobbies that we've come to love, and as a part of loving those, we have developed a certain degree of speciality or a special body of knowledge that most people don't have, and that they would surprisingly pay to learn this knowledge so that they can get a jump start in that subject themselves. The two examples I've used here are restoring classic cars and how to raise chickens that lay eggs. At least in the United States where I live, this example of raising chickens that lay eggs has become incredibly popular in the last couple of years as people begin to think about, okay, what if something went wrong in the world and we had to fend for ourselves? How would we have our own livestock? How would we have our own food and water supply? There are amazing trends and hot buttons for people that develop all the time. And what I've put down here is that thousands of people search Google every month on those two subjects alone, and that's true. You can look up the statistics for how many times people search for any subject. And what you'll find is that there's a lot of information out there, but it's scattered, it's not very well organized, and it is something that the way it's presented through Google, for example, would have you spend a great amount of time, probably hours and maybe even days, mastering a particular subject that you already may know well. If you can create a concise, informative report about how to do either of those two things, you can easily attach a $7 or $17, $19, $27, depending on how complete and whether or not you include audio, video. You can attach a price tag that would surprise you to enable someone to get this information for free very quickly so that they don't have to go roaming all around the internet to find the information, or much less jump in the vehicle and go to the library or a bookstore to find the same. So those are the top 3 questions I wanted to deal with about internet marketing. And in our next session, we'll move on and discuss how you find a domain name provider, how you decide to pick your domain name, and how you pursue getting web hosting so that you have a home on the web for your new business.